morning, guys. How are you all doing? Now, today I'm very excited because I just saw a notification in my YouTube subscription box that Apple has just released iOS 11.4, which means now the HomePod, which I have sitting right over here, finally supports stereo sound. Now, a few months ago, I actually was doing a whole video about the HomePod. You can see I was filming it in my dorm room. I filmed a whole unboxing, and I was going to upload it, but I decided, you know what, I really wanted to wait and see what the HomePod is actually like once all the features are out, which means multi-room support, stereo pairing, and calendar support. So now I have picked up a second HomePod, and I wanted to discuss sort of a whole review of the HomePod, but more so, a review of using the HomePod with 2 units. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into the video. Alright, now the setup is very simple. The first thing that you've got to do is actually plug in the HomePod, and then once you do so, there's a white spinning light on top right there. Then it makes a setup noise, and you're instantly ready to start pairing. So now to do so, you simply hold your phone near the HomePod and unlock it, and then it brings up this setup prompt. So now I'll press setup. Let's put this in dorm, enable personal requests, and transfer setting. Now what you got to do to set up stereo pairing, this is different than just the regular setup process. You open your Apple Home app, right? And then your HomePods will appear. You see I have 2 HomePods. So I'm gonna tap on one of them. And then you can actually see this button that says create a stereo pair. So you tap that and you select both your HomePods. Now you can identify which is left or right by tapping it. It lights up and it makes a little ding. So this lets me know that it's actually switched. So I press the switch button and it corrects them. Now I can do a check again. And that's it. You can see I have the 2 speakers in here, the one on the right and the one on the left. You can name the room that it's in, what the actual pair is called, see what speakers are in the pair. And then you have all your other regular settings for the actual HomePod, from how to use it with Siri, like how you want it to respond, the voices, location services, all of that. Now, a new thing with iOS 11.4 is before HomePods were always able to use notes and stuff, but now you can actually do other things. Like, for example, hey Siri, what's on my calendar for tomorrow?
You have one appointment on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Please subscribe.
Alright, and just like that. Now, as you notice, when I responded with the Hey Siri command line, only one of the 2 HomePods actually lit up. So it kind of listens to which one's closer to your voice and then is able to figure out, based on that, which one should light up. Now let's get on to what you're all waiting for, which is a sound test. Now to actually conduct this sound test, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my lavalier mic, which I'm talking into right now. As you can see, it's recording directly into my iPhone, and I'm gonna actually place this about 2 feet away in between the 2 HomePods. Now that'll kind of simulate a rough stereo sound while still keeping the 2 HomePods close together, so that I can get the best audio quality into the mic, but still give you guys a sense of what it's actually going to sound like. So let's go. Now first up, I want to start by talking about the HomePod itself. See, I absolutely love this little guy. When I got it, I was expecting the audio quality of maybe a little bit better than an Amazon Alexa. I wasn't expecting that much because after all, it was a smart speaker. But when I opened this, I really understood Apple's attention to this being more of a speaker and less so a smart device. It sounded really, really good because all the speakers are oriented in a circle. There's actually 7 tweeters in a circle and then a subwoofer facing up. All of that allowed for this HomePod to create a sort of left-right balance, not really as well as when there's 2 speakers, but having that circular pattern and it to be able to project sound left and right really does actually work, and it created some excellent sounding music. This is also part of why Apple calls this more of a speaker first and less so of a smart speaker, because the smart functionalities aren't actually up to par with its audio quality. See, it does a lot of stuff. You can ask it to search up information and it would give you basic information, basic facts. You can create calendar events, add notes, ask it to read your text, stuff like that. But beyond that, it doesn't really do that much. See, the Google Home is a lot better in terms of just being a very smart speaker. It can kind of predict things that you want. It has a lot more functionality in terms of what it can look up. You can actually have conversations with it where it'll remember context of what you last said. It's actually a really good device. You can even make calls from it. You can make calls from the Alexa, and you can't even make calls from the Apple HomePod. See, after using all these, I realize now that Apple's is actually the weakest in terms of smart functionality, but they beyond make up for that in terms of the sound quality. Now, going into the thing that really interested me, which was the stereo pairing. See, when I first got this HomePod, the sound was incredible. It was much better than I thought it would, and I showed it to all my friends in the dorm, and they all thought it sounded really good. But I felt it was lacking a little bit in terms of left-right balance when you're comparing it to other speakers. See, since they're marketing this as a really good speaker with smart functionalities, it had to sound like a really, really good speaker, especially for the $350 price tag. So when comparing it to other speakers in that class, it wasn't really there, which is why I thought, let me give stereo pairing a try. So I waited until today, which is when iOS 11.4 came out, and then I picked up a second one to test out this stereo pairing to see if it was actually as good as I thought it was gonna be. Now, stereo pairing sounds really, really good. You can actually hear as the speakers turn on, they kind of tune themselves to each other very quickly and are able to create a really good spatial left-right balance. See, the HomePod is actually really, really intelligent in terms of how it balances its EQ, and it was able to create a much wider stage than it actually is, considering I have my speakers on my desk about like 4 feet apart. When I was doing the tests over on that desk, they were about 1 foot apart. And it was able to create a much better left-right sound than I thought it could at that distance. I'm sure if I placed them on either side of a room and sat in the middle, yeah, of course it would be like really surround sounding, but most people don't do that. Most people are gonna place it in like a bookshelf or on a desk. So I tried to do my tests where the HomePods were a little bit closer together, because that's how I'm probably gonna be using it, and that's how I feel most people are gonna use it. So when I was doing my tests at that sort of range, they actually sounded really, really good, but not incredible. See, I'm sure a lot of reviewers are gonna overhype this and say, oh, the stereo pairing is incredible. It was really, really good, and I actually think they are now worth a lot more than they were before, simply because now with the left-right balance, it actually sounds like a real set of speakers. But they're nothing compared to, let's say, a really nice high-end audio system. And the problem with the HomePod, and the real reason why it's hard to recommend, I can recommend them, but it's hard to, is because they cost so much. If you were to get a stereo pair like what I have, it's close to $800. And so at a price point, I think it's around $750 with tax. So at an almost $800 price point, you have to weigh in the options like, okay, is it really worth it to go for 2 HomePods, which sounds really, really good, or should I put that $800 towards a really high-end audio system? See, if you got something like the Sonos Play 1 speakers, the pair of speakers, and a Sonos subwoofer, that might be a little bit more than the HomePods, but then you're getting 2 really high-end audio speakers and a subwoofer, and you'll get much louder, richer sound. And that's not even comparing it to other high-end non-AirPlay audio systems. I'm just looking at other smart AirPlay systems. In fact, the Sonos One speakers can even talk to them with Alexa and Google Play. So having features like that, it means it is a smart speaker competing with the HomePod over there. So having that available on the market makes it really hard to recommend the HomePod. I can recommend it if you're a die-hard Apple Music user, because these are really only useful if you have Apple Music subscription. So if you're a die-hard Apple Music user, then yeah, these are actually pretty good. You could just ask it to play a song, it plays it right away, no hiccup. They pair very well together. It's super easy to set up if you have an Apple device. So if you just want a very streamlined experience, then yeah, these are gonna beat out the Sonos. But for the bang for buck, in terms of what you get for audio quality, for the price, I think you could probably do better with a more intricate system from, let's say, a company like Sonos. Now, another thing that you have to take into account with the Apple speakers is that they actually look really, really good. The Sonos speakers look like really cheap speakers. They're all plasticky materials and they're these like black and silver colors. The HomePods are this nice like mesh fabric that goes around them, and they actually look pretty good sitting on a desk or a shelf, something like that. So I actually really like the way the HomePod looks, and I can recommend its looks over other speakers. So I know a lot of people sometimes are hesitant to buy speakers because, let's say, they have a nice aesthetic in the room and they don't want to ruin that. So that might be one reason to get the HomePod. But then again, a lot of people don't really care how their speakers look. They just want them to sound good and to have a lot of bang for their buck. And so if you're that type of person, then the HomePod might not be right for you. But if you want something that looks nice, works well very easily, sounds really, really good, maybe not as good for the price, but it does sound incredible, and has something that is smart functionality so that you can talk to it and have it play songs very easily, then the HomePod might be for you. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please hit that like button and comment down below letting me know what you liked. Also, be sure to subscribe, as I have a lot of videos coming out in the future, and one very special video that I think is next to come out that is going to be a very big announcement for what's coming next with this channel, so you don't want to miss that. Anyway, thanks, subscribe, and peace out.